This is a really quick video where I'm just going to walk you through my process for finding ideas, capturing them, and turning them into something that is more unique to me that I can use in my content creation moving forwards or in my business as a whole. It's a bit meta because the example I'm going to share with you is my ideation process on an idea about having and finding ideas, but I think it illustrates the process quite well, and hopefully you'll be able to take it forward into your own business, into your own content creation. So this morning I was reading a book called Make 'em Beg to Buy From You by Travis Sago. And in it, he talks about something called the wallet loop effect. So I'll read you the passage. He goes, "These are just examples of present pain. And if you use present pain, especially if you point to the symptoms of their present pain, you're going to see conversions faster. I call this the wallet lube effect. I know I'm junior high." So why is this relevant? I have a 5-step ideation process. I'm going to link to it below. You can download it. And in that ideation process, one of the core components is mining for gold. So you look for good ideas that have been posted in the past, and especially if they resonate with you, you capture them, record them, and develop them either instantly or at some point in the future. The point is you come away with a list, a bank of ideas that you can draw from whenever you're short on inspiration. But the magic really happens when you come to develop those ideas. And we'll come back to the wallet lube effect shortly. It will all make sense in a moment. So when I come through, I use Dan Koh's Cortex app for capturing my ideas, connecting them and developing them. But the cool part is coming through to here, the idea sources. And so this morning, I started off reading this book, or reading a section of this book by Travis Sago. But then I start the day with ideation. It's part of my ICE framework, or my ICE cold content framework. So ideate, create, engage, capture, offer, live, deliver. And so when you're growing your audience, the idea is that you stick to ICE, ideate, create, engage. And so this is my ideation process. I call it the idea engine. And so I have a list of sources of ideas that I can turn to whenever I'm looking for idea inspiration, basically. And so there's a whole list of people in a similar niche or tangential niches, as well as just people who have ideas that I resonate with. They're not necessarily related to what I do as a content creator, but they're just interesting people who I like and who I've got lots of value from in the past. So a good example of this is Jedediah Jenkins, who's a writer. He's got quite a big social media presence as well. And I read one of his books a long time ago and really resonated with how he thinks. And so this morning, I went through onto his Instagram. I just found myself going through his content. Ended up on this reel here, I think.
Feeling in the freshness and the fear of like, am I allowed to write a novel? Like, that feels big boy. Or like, am I allowed to write a book of poetry? Like, imagine calling yourself a poet. Already, I've written a bunch this year, and it's so fun, and I don't even remember writing them. Because you just wake up, you make your coffee, and I just try to write about, like, I'm not precious about it. It's just like, you're gonna get...
This is the bit that resonated with me.
Maybe 5 good poems, but who cares? At least they are born.
So I heard that, and it stood out to me as an idea that vibed with me. And this is a key part of the ideation process that I encourage people to adopt. You're not just looking for any ideas, you're looking for an idea that resonates with you within the realm of content that you produce and the ideas that you talk about, and that is also something that you can speak to or you have some knowledge with. So that's kind of the trifecta of a winning idea that I look for. This idea from Jedediah Jenkins was kind of one of those ideas for me. And so I brought it through into Cortex, and I just started riffing on the topic. So this is where it gets a bit meta, because the post from Jedediah Jenkins relates entirely to how I try to approach this note-taking process. So the brain dump section is really powerful because essentially you just let yourself riff on that idea. Sometimes good ideas seem to come out of the ether. This is just me typing on my keyboard, just letting the ideas flow, not trying to sound any particular way. I'm not editing what I write. I'm just getting the notes that come to mind down onto the page as quickly as I can. And what you find is that quite quickly leads you to the good ideas. That quite often takes you down a path where you find your own take on the idea that resonated to you in the first place. But you also uncover related ideas and tap into memories or stories or other related topics. Another thing to note is that the template that Code provides, and the one that which I've added to, prompts you in ways that elicits those complementary ideas. And so this is what I ended up doing. I worked my way through, and quite quickly I ended up on the idea of the muse, and how there's this sense that good ideas often just come through you. They come out of the ether. It feels like quite a disempowering idea, because all of a sudden idea generation isn't in your control anymore. You're waiting for inspiration to strike. It struck me that maybe these musicians and artists and creatives who speak of the muse aren't giving themselves enough credit. So I went into how, there's almost always a process involved. It might be something you're doing in the moment or something you've been doing for some time. I've seen videos of the lead singer of Coldplay, for example. He's talking about how these ideas just come to him, but he's almost always on the piano already. He's playing around with ideas either by himself or with the band. And as he is doing that, the idea starts to flow. Again, this is meta, because it's exactly what's happening as we go through this ideation process. When you start sort of riffing on it, new ideas come out, and they're often good ones. They're often ones that you would want to put out into the world in the form of content. And so, this led me to remember something called the Creativity Faucet. Julian Shapiro, he has this notion of the Creativity Faucet. He talks about how creativity and the idea faucet is kind of like a backed up water pipe with a single faucet on the end. So you have to turn that faucet and let the backed up, nasty, dirty water flow, aka the bad ideas. You get all that out first before you get to the clean water. And those are the good ideas. So that led me to think of that. And in turn, I thought of this video from John Mayer, similar idea, just framed differently. See if I can play it.
It requires a stupid bravery all the time, but you could sit here all day. You can go, okay, maybe that's something. But if you don't go, sunlight's beating on the corners of the walls, and I'm a Mr. Know-It-All. Heaven calls, get yourself right now. If you're not Ouija boarding immediately, you're wasting time.
I had watched that video a long time ago. I think it went viral and it came across my YouTube feed. I watched it, I rewatched it at the time. This was probably months ago. And in going through this process, it popped up in my head as a related idea, as something that very much relates to what I'm already talking about. And there were two things that stood out to me from that. There was the requires stupid bravery. I think actually, I had the idea first, and then I remembered that kind of line, it requires stupid bravery. And then when I watched it again, after I'd put the link in Cortex, there was that line about if you're not Ouija boarding immediately, you're wasting time. And that was a passing comment from John Mayer, but it's obviously really powerful. And so the longer you wait to start that process of riffing on an idea or putting pen to paper or creating content, the longer it's going to take you to develop those unique, good ideas. You can see the connection there to the creativity faucet, where May is saying if you're not turning that faucet, you're wasting time, because it's going to take you significantly longer to get to the clean water that's backed up behind the dirty stuff. So this is kind of how this process worked. And I just kept on going through, wrote down all the ideas that, I was just kind of talking about, went even further. Kind of it led me to this sense that the time frames vary as well. So we're kind of almost talking about two different things here. There's the creativity faucet in the moment, where you sort of create in the moment, and the quicker you can get into it, the quicker you find the winning ideas. And then there's kind of the zoomed out macro version, where you go, like, the quicker I get into the habit of creating content without as much fear or need for perfection or desire for quality, without like an intent, full stop really, but without thinking of the outcome and just getting into that process of creating content, that's what gives you the best chance of finding those winning posts that help you level up. So yeah, this is kind of where I ended up. And at the bottom of the core notes example, there's this place to come up with a concept. And hopefully this is where you see the link back to the Travis Sago passage and his notion of wallet loop. It's quite a memorable idea. So it must have registered in there somewhere. And so when I came to think of a concept for this, content loop or idea loop came to mind quite quickly. And I hope it's a good example of why this is so useful. Coming up with these ideas, it gives me ideas for social media posts like this one. I went and put this one in Buffer. But it isn't just about the content you create in the moment. When you capture and record these ideas and you get into the habit of that, you can draw from the different sources to find or come up with new ideas based on the ones that you have encountered in the past. Content loop is obviously a bit immature. It's exactly what Travis Sago was talking about. It's junior high stuff. But in the same way that I remembered his idea, I think content loop is quite memorable too. And it sums up quite nicely what this process entails. It's like you're lubing up your idea generation muscle. You start with an idea, could be someone else's. And again, this is that micro version of this. You start with an idea, you riff on it, you make it your own. Your brain kind of takes you down rabbit holes and draws connections that you might otherwise have forgotten were even there. So it's content loop. And then back to the Jedediah thing at the start, like there's that macro connotation as well, where when he sits down to write a poem, he's not thinking of the outcome necessarily. He's just doing it for the sake of it. He says he's not too precious about it. And this is where I came up with the title for this idea, like produce without being precious, which in itself is another idea. I could easily turn that into a piece of content. And in so doing, because he's not focused on the outcome as much as the process of creating, he ends up being far more prolific. He's just enjoying the craft. And as a result, he finds those winning posts. And like he said, you're going to get maybe 5 good poems out of it, but who cares? At least they're born. This ideation process kind of relates to that idea quite nicely. So anyway, I'll leave it there. Hope you found this valuable. Remember, down in the description, you'll find a link to the ideation process that I've just been talking about. And I hope you get some value from that too. So hit follow and I will see you in the next one.